first memory of my father was of him painting the life on these islands of Chincoteague and Chincoteague. Through the years I grew to love them as much as he, and now let my hand write on paper what his eye painted on canvas. 4 miles from the Virginia mainland, Chincoteague Island serves as the home of his old friends, while Chincoteague stands guard against the waves of the ocean, providing a home in the wild for the islanders' beloved ponies. Like my father, I hold a particular fondness for these spirited creatures, and one very special event centered around them. Result of the hard work of the cowboys and the volunteer fire company. It is the annual Chincoteague Wild Pony Swim. Now there's many a story to be told about the days gone by of the pony swim, the islanders, and the history of their town. One resident storyteller and folklorist, Walt Clark, tells these stories best, I think.
Of course, I've asked some of my people questions, but what I've picked up is sitting around the grocery store listening to these old heads. And I don't forget what I don't forget now.
Pony penning, as the locals call it, dates a long way back to the days of the early settlers.
Well, a lot of the people thinks that they were livestock that got wild from the settlers that first settled on Chincoteague. That was in 1669, the earliest record they've got. But them people, they didn't have that much money. They wouldn't have let their livestock got away from them.
Evidence suggests that the ponies roamed wild on Chincoteague before the colonies were established. Local legend has it that the first ones came from a 17th century Spanish galleon, perhaps sailing to or from its homeland on a trade route. Caught in a violent storm off the coast of Virginia, it wrecked upon the shoals. Although the crew was lost, the legend holds that the ponies managed to swim to the nearby shores of Chincoteague, and there they survived in the wild. Other legends speak of pirates capturing a ship and after killing the crew and robbing the boat of its treasures, set the ponies free to swim ashore. Many historians agree that the ponies actually were brought here by the early settlers and left on the island to graze. Still, the legends persist.
The ponies was Spanish barbed to start with, so they had to come from Spain. So I believe that legend more than I do any of them. I believe they come off shipwrecks. See, they would leave the Bahamas, these Spanish ships would leave the Bahamas and get blowed off course and get blowed up the coast.
Though no real proof has yet to satisfy the historians of the legend's truth, one letter written in the 16th century by England's Earl of Rockhampton to the ambassador from Spain adds further to the mystery of the pony's origins. Of a ship belonging to Spain's treasure fleet, lost off the coast of Chincoteague, he writes, "All hands of the Spanish vessel Chimena were lost. The log of the Chimena told of a cargo of horses and ponies, listed for the forces of your sovereign presently ensconced in Panama. The reports from our agents indicated the discovery of many human remains awash on the beach following the storm. However, of the remains of horses and ponies, our agents reported finding none. Later reports from the area of Chincoteague tell of several such animals running wild across the island." Truth or legend, it belongs only to the island and her proud inhabitants. Perhaps as a secret in romance, to be held dearly by its keepers. Whatever their origin, the ponies adapted well to their rigorous island existence.
Chincoteague pony browse just like a goat. You can tie him out, he'll eat honeysuckle, bullbriars, poison ivy, skin the bark off from trees, he'll eat any damn thing a goat eat, a Chincoteague pony will. The Chincoteague ponies, if they're kept in good shape, a 14-hand Chincoteague pony, weigh up around 800 pounds, can ride a 200-pound man all day long. They're awful tough, got an awful lot of grit.
The people, too, who settled on the islands endured through many a hardship. And a determined lot they must have been, as their descendants proved to be.
Now, I had a great uncle, my grandmother's brother, George Burke, lived up on Green Run up near Ocean City, up North Beach, up near Ocean City Inlet now. And he was down this sheep hunting back in 1909, I think it was. And he was big. Grandmom had a picture of him, a nice looking fella, big fella. And he was riding the mare and had a colt following him. And old man Dan Jones fella lived close to me. He was telling me about it. He said, George said, you better come go home with us and stay home with us till this squall's over. Well, before they run that road all the way up the beach to Flats, if you had a northeaster, would cross Chincoteague right in Chincoteague Bay, wasn't no sand dunes or nothing. And he said, no, said, I'm going to North Beach or I'm going to hell, one or the other. So he left. He was 22 years old. He left on that mare and he didn't show up. And when they went to look for him, they found him out on them flats, and a bolt of lightning had hit him right on top of his head, come out under his chin, right down through the mire. His old big railroad blocks, belt buckle and everything was gone, but the colt was still alive. So he didn't get to North Beach. I don't know whether he went to the other place or not.
Indeed, the life was not always easy, but the residents found ways through their hard work to have good times, too.
When they first started years ago in the early 1900s, they would go over, round them up on Chincoteague, and bring them over by boat to Chincoteague. And they'd have a big picnic, like the 4th of July picnic. You know, the women would cook all the stuff. And people come from all up and down the East Coast in them days to buy the ponies.
A penning and auction of the wild ponies continued as an annual Chincoteague tradition. But it wasn't until the early 1920s that the purpose for holding such an event took a different turn. In 1924, a fire broke out, destroying most of the buildings on the west side of the island. Determined not to have another disaster of its kind, the residents held a carnival at the same time as the annual roundup and pony auction to help raise money for the establishment of the island's first fire company. It was then that the long association of the ponies and the fire company began.
Climaxes an exciting roundup of a herd of ponies that runs wild all year until driven across the channel to Chincoteague, a small island off the coast near the Virginia-Maryland Peninsula. The annual event is part of the volunteer firemen's fair and pony auction. Most of the herd belongs to the smoke eaters. And if you can round up Pop, Mom and the kids won't be far behind. Once ashore, the herd hits the road to the carnival ground. How the ponies first came to the island is a mystery to people. But if you understand pony language, it's all very simple. Buyers come from all parts of the country to pick up a promising youngster. And speaking of youngsters, it's a field day. The ponies that remain unsold, the prices are, take them or leave them, are returned to Chincoteague until next roundup. But there's no scarcity of buyers, this proud owner being one shining example of many satisfied customers.
Year after year, the pony penning and carnival became more popular. And with each success, the fire company grew larger and stronger. In fact, today, Chincoteague is protected by one of the best equipped volunteer companies in rural Virginia. Now, I remember one auction back in 1946 where one very special pony was sold to an admirer from Illinois. A relationship which led to international fame for Chincoteague and its ponies. Margaret Henry's book, Misty of Chincoteague, became so well known and loved by so many that 20th Century Fox followed with the movie called Misty, still shown every pony penning at the island's Roxy Theater. The pony swim and auction and that dear little pony Misty have traditionally drawn the most attention from the media and the public. But the fire company's involvement goes far beyond those few days in July. In the 40s, the fire company began buying the ponies in an effort to better manage and care for the herds. And since 1960, has been the sole owner of the ponies on the Virginia side of the island. Outside horses were brought in to improve the herd and limit the effects of inbreeding.
When I was about 17 or 18 years old, 16, 17, 18 years old, the fire company went out west and got some of them Indian horses paints. And a fellow named Will Wilton, he was Ralph Beebe's uncle. He took a 10-wheel truck and went down to North Carolina and bought a truckload of them bank ponies. Well, they were just like our ponies, same pony. $5 a piece what he paid for them. Brought them up here and turned them out on Pontiac.
Members of the Pony Committee visit the wildlife refuge at least once a week all year round, keeping track of the condition and whereabouts of the herds, providing bales of hay during the lean winter months, and maintaining the water holes. Despite this attention, the ponies remain in the wild and by special permit have the run of the Federal Wildlife Refuge.
In order to keep the herd, the legend and the herd of the Chincoteague ponies, you have to take the colts and sell the colts, and you keep a few for future brood stock. If you don't, the colt pulls the mare down, she dies, and then the colt dies.
Because biologists have determined that the island's grass and fresh water can accommodate a limited number, the annual roundup and auction of the foals serves as a matter of wildlife management and not just a fundraising event. But an event it is indeed. No true Chincoteaguer would think of missing it. And the thousands of mainland visitors who travel miles to attend it would agree. The celebration starts with the opening of the carnival nearly 2 weeks before the actual pony swim. Months of the fire company's preparation results in the squeals of children's delight, smiles from the challenge of winning a prize, and bellies full of soft crabs, oyster fritters, and cotton candy. Meanwhile, there is some serious business to tend to if there's going to be a pony swim. At daybreak, the Sunday before the swim, far from the view of the crowds, the real work begins. 40 or so volunteers assemble for the roundup.
When everybody gets all saddled up and leaves, try not to be sprung out.
Now, they're not just island folk. They come from all over the mainland states of Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and the Carolinas. It's quite an honor for these seasoned riders to participate, and many are long-time veterans. Dressed in their chaps and 10-gallon hats, these East Coast cowboys ready themselves for a long day on the marsh. Horses unloaded, saddled, and mounted, their search begins amidst the quiet pines and salt grasses of Assateague. At day's end, however, through the deep mud and thick brush, the hard work is rewarded as the last pony of the herd is corralled.
Time for me to get off of here.
But all is not finished for these boys. Another day is in store. The corral is alive the next day. Stallions flaring and kicking, guarding their brood of mares. Dust thick with heat as foals race with newfound friends, while others stay close to the more familiar. There's work to be done, and it's not going to be easy. All hands are needed now, for the entire herd of these wild ponies must be tended to. Hooves are trimmed, scratches from the briars treated, while a veterinarian examines each carefully with special attention given to the little foals. By day's end, all have been checked and readied for the big day. It has been exhausting for these cowboys, yet their spirits remain bright. No one said it had to be all work and no play.
I'm gonna jump in first.
Oops, sorry.
One night remains before the swim, and all await it with great anticipation. Perhaps a story or two unfolds of days gone by.
Now we did have, we were up there one day over here where them high sand dunes are. We call them Wade Hills. And we had an awful bad thunder squall. And we were where we couldn't get away from it, and we had to stay under these pine trees. And I took my old hat off and punched the crane up and pulled it down and draw it up under that, and that lightning was hitting back in them trees, and you could feel your hair tangling. Boys, I didn't want to be there, but nothing else we could do.
The time has finally come. The biggest event of the year. This last Wednesday in July brings thousands from all over the country and world assembling on land and water to wait for the famous Chincoteague ponies to make their swim across the channel between Assateague and Chincoteague. Media crews and onlookers alike patiently await slack tide. Then the waiting silence is broken. "Here they come," someone cries. The crowd peers into the distance. A flare is shot into the air. The signal is given. Cheers follow as the ponies are seen in the distance, driven by the shouts of the cowboys. Closer and closer they come until, with the squeal of the crowd's delight, they splash into the waters of the channel. Onto the banks of Chincoteague they go, a familiar landing for these powerful swimmers, as the crowd awaits for the first foal to step ashore, a long tradition deeming it the king or queen Neptune of the pony penning. Once rested, the last leg of today's journey begins. Down the streets and through the town of Chincoteague these beauties go. Such honored guests are they, the road lined with people anxious to catch their first look at this year's herd. In a cloud of dust and a thunder of hooves, they make their way toward the fairgrounds. And though most of them manage to stay in line, a few decide to take some scenic routes through the neighbors' flower beds or perhaps Mrs. B's clothesline. But nonetheless, it's more fun than any 4th of July in the big city. Hoops and hollers from the crowd cheer them on as the cowboys skillfully guide them into the corral. "What a beauty!" one exclaims. "Oh, I remember him," says a veteran onlooker. "Maybe that one could be mine," says a hopeful child. The Islanders just smile thoughtfully at their old friends, for it has been a whole year since most of the residents have seen them, and there's many a memory held.
Us boys used to go up there and get them. They had a big corral up there where they had these Mustangs. We'd get 6 or 7 head of us and get up on the side of the corral. We'd catch them in there eating hay, you know, and close it. And we'd get somebody getting there and run them around. We'd jump off the fence on their backs and holler, "Open the gate," no line, bridle, or nothing. Captain, you could get some hard cracks doing that too. I've been there about knocked senseless up against pine trees.
Early Thursday morning, the auction begins. Eager buyers line the fences, carefully eyeing each foal, making their choice with a gesture high in the air, while others watch longing for the pony they've always dreamed of having. Each time I see a little girl here looking intently on her special choice, hoping that somehow she might take him home, I'm reminded of my first visit here as a child with my father. I had spotted one foal the day of the swim, and I could have no other.
This little girl, I was talking to him, this little girl, I went down and looked them over, and come down and said, "Daddy," said, I picked out my first choice and my second choice. And I told him, I said, "You better buy that first choice, because that's what she wanted to start with." So after the bid was over, he come to me and said, "You cost me $750. Well, they carried that pony home to Texas. I rode her back on the back of my mare. I had a strawberry roan mare then. I rode her back to the horse pen with me. And I don't know, about a year later, she sent me a picture. She had named her Chincoteague.
Many a happy customer can be seen, pleased with their lively new bundle with high-kicking beanstalk legs. Soon they'll become a docile and loving companion, gentle enough for the youngest of children. Off they go on a high adventure to New York, Illinois, maybe even Texas, taking their island spirit with them. Mid-afternoon brings the cowboys back. Rested, well-fed, they begin to assemble. Young ones, veterans, and the old heads. It's rodeo time, and those who dare ride 'em bareback, while some don't ride 'em at all. One last gathering before nightfall brings the weary equestrians together. Now, with their work almost at an end, they can rest assured that their efforts will indeed benefit their fire company. The last day of pony penning, Islanders and visitors gather to bid farewell for another year, while Assateague awaits the pony's return in her stillness. Then in the distance, the sound of the familiar hoofbeats is heard, and at once the ponies appear, racing to the channel's edge, plunging into the water. They know they are going to their beloved home in the wild. And so goes the story of the Chincoteague Wild Ponies, legends that they are, to be told again and again by those whom I, for one, will always remember as dearly as their subject.
One girl had moved to California. She'd been gone, she was pretty as a picture. She'd been gone a long time, and she had grown up. She said, "You remember me?" I said, "Yeah, I remember you. Where you been?" She said, "We're living in California." They don't never forget me.
I leave you now with another man's story, one without words, one which I hold very close. For through my father's eyes, I too have come to love these islands, and to write my own words about their precious legends.